Hi there. Okay, so this presentation is really a result of many years of research. And there were two studies that were conducted. One study is actually ongoing, but the first study had 239 participants who attended college. They were either undergraduate students or graduate students, 171 people who identified as females, and 68 who identified as males. Nobody identified as other genders. This study looked at the motivations, meanings, and symbolic imagery of obtaining or not obtaining tattoos. The second study is in process right now, and it explores the relationship between tattoos and self-healing to expand our understanding of the possible functions of tattoo imagery in a therapeutic process. Sarah, can you move? Yes. So why in the world should we actually research tattoos? Well, 30% of adults living in the United States are reported to have a tattoo. And those under 55 years of age are likely to have more than one tattoo. Tattoo cross the boundaries of gender, socioeconomic status, race, and ethnicity. There's also a connection with tattoos and experience of being a refugee, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on in this discussion. There's also dichotomies of the private and the public, the universal and specific, concealing and revealing, impulsivity, pain and pleasure. Many of the meanings range from rebellion, self-assertion, self-identification, group membership, to commemoration, remembrance, acceptance of a disability, and expression of the spiritual and transpersonal. So I imagine that some of you sharing with us today are not as familiar with the art therapy field. And of course, you can get further information about art therapy on the American Art Therapy Association website. But just for a short overview, art therapy is another form of psychotherapy that really employs non-threatening techniques to show individuals and allow an opportunity to explore personal problems and potentials through verbal and nonverbal expression. Art therapy includes the product and the process. The process during times of trauma is the power of resilience. Art is important to healing, and art therapists work with people of all ages and client populations. This is the article that was published in November in the American Art Therapy Association Journal online, and it will also be in the fall edition of the journal. And one thing that the word from tattoo is something that is, of course, all over the world, and the word actually originates from the Tahitian word, which means to mark. In order to understand more about the connection between tattoos and healing and therapy, I was really looking for what are the motivations? Why do people obtain a tattoo? And what is their relationship between their personal narratives and the symbols they choose? So there were several research questions, and 3 of them are here, about do differences exist in the motivations between the genders in obtaining tattoos? What are the motivations and functions for college students to obtain or not to obtain a tattoo? And can tattoos be connected to healing and have a therapeutic effect? There's many things that one can read about tattoos, and many people might not know that there has been a long tradition of tattoos and women. And there actually is what has been called in the literature as tattoo villages. And there's different places in the world, such as in East Dagestan, which is part of the Russian Federation, where women receive tattoos as preventative medicine to protect their health, because the women in this society do much more of the heavy work in this mountainous region. Girls in this area are tattooed at puberty. They Tattoos are also emblems of belonging to a group. These tattoos not only are on the women's bodies, but on cloth, stone, rugs, embroideries. And we also see women's tattoo villages in Polynesia. And the studies there reveal that tattoos were part of a symbolic technique to protect the self. So information from public research about women and tattoos also find that in the last 20 years, there's been an increased number of college-age women obtaining tattoos. There's a connection between concerns about positive appearance and getting a tattoo. It's been found in the research that women are more impulsive than men when getting a tattoo, and they choose to put their tattoos on areas of the body that can be covered. Many of the women who were younger felt that their parents would not accept a visible tattoo, so they preferred to have one where they could cover it up with clothing. Tattoos are often viewed as a rite of passage. Women's views on their tattoos can change over time. There is some tattoo regret, as age is an important factor for women, as the body is often criticized across a woman's lifespan. For older women, tattoos can also serve as a celebration and a reclamation of the body. Information from the literature on tattoos and men. Men receive more negative feedback about their tattoos, yet they are more accepted for having a tattoo. Men get tattoos for group identity and self-expression. There's also a long history of men in the military getting tattoos, and also connections to sports teams. There has been in the literature writing about sexism that men often assume women with tattoos are willing to engage in sexual connections in the absence of a committed relationship. Tattoos are like selfies. They often make a person feel good. Many of you might have heard of Project Semicolon. It's an organization that uses the symbol of a semicolon for suicide prevention. It represents a sentence that did not end, and this symbol was created in response originally to healing from a parent's suicide and coping with the person's own suicidal thoughts. Tattoos are also important in healing for women who survived abuse, and memorial tattoos are also important in healing. They serve an external representation of loss and a communication to others regarding their loss. Tattoos are often used to document issues from the family of origin, relationships, including closeness and distance between the family of origin, identification, and individuation. From my study, I'm going to just show just a few different graphs, and this particular one is on the motivation of individuals for obtaining a tattoo. And you could see that most of the individuals in my study obtained a tattoo for self-expression. The next larger piece of the pie was for memorial, and then sort of equal to independence and belonging to a group. This particular slide can show you the different questions that came up about why one was motivated to obtain a tattoo. And you could see that there's a difference between females and males. And in this particular study, more females had a higher percentages on all of these questions than males. So more females were motivated to have a tattoo for self-expression, aesthetics, depiction of independence, connection to a group, rebellion towards parents, commemoration of an event, control of one's body, and in memory of something or someone. In my study, I found that 72% of students with tattoos considered their tattoos to be a source of empowerment or strength. 45% considered their tattoos as healing, and more than half of the participants agreed that their tattoos actually told a story, a narrative. 79% of the students planned their own tattoos, and 44% described that having a tattoo of an event made it easier to explain or talk about that event to others. Information gleaned from research that other researchers completed show that sometimes individuals with tattoos have higher scores on measures of extroversion and a need for uniqueness and risk-taking behavior. There is also identity development through symbolization, as depicted on a tattoo, suicide prevention, the retranslation of stressful events, the expression of feelings regarding injured parts of the body, and a primary rationale for the removal of tattoos was found to be due to negative responses from other people. I'm going to ask Sarah if she'd like to chime in and talk about the current study that she is helping with the research collection.
Sure, thanks, Simone. So this is the current study that I'm assisting Simone on, and the participants include art therapists who work with tattoos in their therapy sessions, students with tattoos, and tattoo artists. And this study aims to explore correlations between healing and tattoos. Tattoo artists have discussed factors for obtaining tattoos, which include milestones such as graduation, divorce, separation, breakups, transitions, and/or entering a new stage in one's life, bonding to a group, connection to sports, transformative tattoos that the person can no longer identify with. These include gang symbols or misspelled names or tattoos that they choose to transform in some way. Hope, closure on a situation or issue, or tattoos used as a coping mechanism. So some things that came up during tattoo artist interviews include self-help tattoos and the relationship to the do-it-yourself culture, the bonding tattoo of siblings or parents and children that several generations of family members receive, creating something permanently linked to someone loved, which is what this photo is an example of, two people that chose to get a tattoo on their ring finger. And the process of obtaining a tattoo may be similar to therapy because of the sharing of an individual's story to another person. So tattoo artists talk about healing. Memorial tattoos are common to honor illness, death, or the end of a relationship. Memorial tattoos sometimes include the ashes of their loved ones mixed in with the ink. The importance of pets in people's lives. There's a predominance of getting a tattoo, especially after someone's dog dies. Release of endorphins. Interpersonal connections of someone working on their body and listening to their stories. When clients over 40 have less fear of getting a stigma, have less of a fear of a stigma about receiving a tattoo. And older adults over 75 are in a new stage of their lives and want to acknowledge that stage. Other reasons include doing something for yourself, and tattoos are often sought during times of transition. So some other reasons that people get tattoos include covering scars from accidents or surgeries, covering old scars from self-harm, transforming facial deformities, C-section scar transformations, mastectomy tattoos, recovery from addictions, and coping with illness. All right, Simone, I'm turning it back over to you.
Sure. Art therapists and tattoo artists who were interviewed assisted their clients in the design and discussion of possible tattoo imagery that the client might like to have. Choosing a tattoo design or transforming an existing tattoo into a new image enabled their clients to change a negative experience into a more positive one. For example, one of the participants said, "My client's process of designing and drawing the tattoo was just not to express loss and grief of a relationship, but to turn that feeling around." Art therapists talked about how tattoos gave the individual a feeling of strength and resilience, along with being an identification of a survivor. Tattoos were reminders of strengths when feelings of self-mutilation or suicidal ideation occurred. Tattoos were a reminder for my client to seek help. Other therapists talked about clients with psychosis and how they might have gotten a tattoo and believed things about their tattoos that are actually fantasy. One therapist said, "Some of my clients had a tattoo when they were not on their antipsychotic medication. Sometimes this particular tattoo was a scary image placed in a prominent part of their body." One of the art therapists that I interviewed was Eric Deansworth. And Eric is from the Midwest, and he's a tattoo artist and an art therapist. And he assists individuals with tattoo regret. He actually works with the jails and with truancy officers. And his clients are individuals that have tattoos that don't really define them anymore. And he works with people to try to get them to transform their tattoos and their negative thinking patterns. But he doesn't do it right away. It's not like, okay, here's the tattoo, I'm going to change it. But what he says is that we need to do therapy about these issues that went on in your life and how you would like to change them. And each week we're going to do some drawings about how you'd like to change this tattoo. And at the end of 15 weeks, we're going to work on it together. And he always left a part of the old tattoo behind because everybody has a part of their past. So the goal is not to remove all marks of the past, but to transform the marks and to benefit the community. In the interviews of art therapists, they talked about what we can look at as positive and negative reasons for obtaining a tattoo. Positive reasons include mindfulness practice, branding an identity that you have chosen for yourself, knowing that you've been capable of loved and being loved, creating protective symbols. Sometimes individuals in the military have a protective symbol put on their shoulder before going into combat zones. Other people put an angel on their shoulder, making oneself beautiful even if they don't feel beautiful. Covering the tattoo of a relationship with an abuser, validation of challenges, and some of the negative ones are making oneself ugly and scary, putting on satanic or cult images. Some people put in teddy bears or lollipops or balloons and try to revert back to childhood. Negative could be a weak self-identity, poor judgment, and clients who just desperately want to fit in. And so they put a tattoo of a group on themselves. Going back to that theme of transforming negative to positive, both art therapists and tattoo artists talked about the transformation and the whole idea of choosing a tattoo design or transforming an existing tattoo into a new image really helps their clients to change a negative experience into a positive one. Because sometimes the tattoos actually anchored a detrimental time in their lives. Tattoos can also, on the other side, give the individual a feeling of strength and resilience. It's not just to cover up something when you're going to change your tattoo, but it's to change. Memorial tattoos may offer structure and control of feelings, and sometimes to have a new identity, the identity of being a survivor instead of a victim. Some art therapists talk about how they use prompts with their clients, and they ask them if they were to draw a tattoo, what is the feeling they most want to change that they're experiencing, and what is the feeling that they have. Other thoughts are that clients appreciate that I'm paying attention to them by noticing their tattoos. Creating a tattoo image on paper helps teens to integrate spirit, mind, and body. Some of the art therapists actually work with cancer survivors who are eager to talk about their tattoos. And even if the survivors don't want a tattoo, they often spend time journaling and designing an idea for a new one. Tattoos can often serve as resilience and also witnessing. So in Israel, there are some Jewish grandchildren who get the tattoo of their grandparent who was in the concentration camp as a remembrance of their grandparents' trauma and a duty to action. So talking about this should never happen again for anybody. People all over the world reclaim the cultural tattoos of their elders. Tattoos serve as a witness. In working with refugees, art and immigrants, tattoos often communicate ethnic, religious, and national identity. It could be a way of telling a story about your country of origin, your family of origin, a connection to a clan, a mark of representation, an artifact of one's culture. Cultural groups may obtain tattoos as an expression of their spirituality and or the belief that the tattoos may protect them from harm. Tattoos are healing. They are narratives that express the self. The healing expressed through tattoos can be emotional, physical, or spiritual. The tattoo image gives a visual form to an internal image. In a society, when indirect communication is more common, such as texting or tweeting, and relationship to others are less permanent, individuals are deciding to create permanent imagery through art on their body to make personal statements. These findings that we shared with you today indicate a possible function for tattoos in therapy, given that tattoos can function as a vehicle for promoting healing and exploring self-identity. Throughout my career, research has helped me validate my beliefs and confirm the importance of art as a tool to indicate and understand typicality, art making benefits and limitations, and the power of art for social issues and healing. As trauma increases worldwide, it is important to realize that art is a language that we all share. Some people here in the audience might be interested in art therapy and the graduate program we have here in Western Massachusetts at Springfield College. And you can Google Springfield College and get more information about it, or feel free to email me at salter, like a salt shaker, mu@springfieldcollege.edu. The programs have just recently received accreditation from CAHAP, which is the Coalition Commission of Allied Health Education Professionals, and AK and Art Therapy Board. So that is very exciting, as well as the state of Connecticut has licensed art therapists, so they are standalone therapists in Massachusetts, art therapists are under the title of licensed mental health counselors. We'd like to have some discussion rather than just keep talking about the research. And we have some questions that we'd like to throw out to the audience. Since images may make an individual permanently linked to someone special and loved, do you foresee more tattoos due to loss during the coronavirus? Have you seen any possible coronavirus tattoos? Or maybe you have some personal experience related to tattoos and healing that you'd like to share either as an individual or as a therapist. Would anybody like to have a question? Let's see here.
Okay, so people can use the Q&A symbol at the bottom of your screen. Just press that and type in your question, and the panelists will be able to see it.
I'm wondering whether or not all the folks who are taking part in all the demonstrations and what's going on now, if there's going to be tattoos from the various cities where people were, or some of their experiences are happening there, I guess. This was a great presentation, by the way. Thank you very much for doing it.
You're welcome. Yes, that will be something of interest. Will there be more tattoos related to the social problems that we're having right now? What's your thoughts on that, Sarah?
I think it's definitely highly possible. I know myself and a lot of people I've spoken to are anxiously looking forward to when we can get tattoos again. So I think there will definitely be a surge of people getting tattoos, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if some of them are related to what's going on in the world right now.
I can't see the questions on my screen, so maybe Sarah, you can read them out loud.
Right now we have no questions, so if anyone has a question and they want to throw it on the Q&A or just let us know verbally.
Well, I'll ask a question. I noticed that a lot of people may want to change their tattoos over time. You said that. And is it more common for people to color it over and make it into something else, or to have it erased?
We don't have research on that, so we can't tell you for sure if it's more common to transform one's tattoo or to have it removed. That would be a great research question, but we haven't looked into that.
I think just from my own personal knowledge that it is a lot more expensive to have a tattoo removed. It takes numerous sessions over time, whereas a tattoo cover-up is something that could be done in 1 or 2 sittings and therefore would be a lot cheaper. So I'm guessing that it's more common to have your tattoo changed. I know that I've spoken to people that have had tattoo cover-ups, but I haven't spoken to anyone that's had a tattoo removed.
And there is a Q&A. Somebody typed in, I am a nurse midwife and have clients who have gotten tattoos after a miscarriage. Is this something you've seen in your research?
No, we haven't seen that, but I think that's a very interesting piece, that for all sorts of losses, people do want to commemorate that. And I think that's very important as well. We've often seen that some of the tattoo artists told us that animals who are lost, people write the name of their animal on their body, or so I could see an unborn child. Thank you for sharing that.
Can you see the Q&A? There are 2 questions typed in.
Yes, so I don't. Okay, so the first question, I don't tattoo because of the fear of pain. Does your research suggest that the pain of application is cathartic? Do you want to address that, Simone?
Oh, I'll also let you address it, but yes, the research does show that for some people, the pain does reduce some endorphins that makes it actually pleasurable rather than just painful. Sarah, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's not just that the pain is cathartic. I think the whole experience in and of itself is cathartic. And I'm not sure if this person, it says that there's a fear of pain. I would say if you're thinking of getting a tattoo, placement greatly affects the level of pain that you would experience. I can say that from personal experience. But yeah, I'm wondering if also, there was definitely a connection in the research between people that have engaged in self-harm and getting a tattoo. And I would say people that I've spoken to don't get tattoos because they're looking for pain, but that it is an overall cathartic experience, if that makes sense. Okay, so then the next question says, I missed the beginning of your presentation and I don't have a tattoo, but did your research also notice any importance to the physical process of getting a tattoo in addition to the emotional or psychological benefit of getting a tattoo? I would say yes. We spoke a little bit about the process of being with another person, and when you're getting a tattoo, it's a very physically intimate experience. And I think, we kind of, Simone and I spoke about how it's very similar to going to a hairdresser or any of those situations where you're basically with a stranger, but you're with them for a significant period of time, and you end up, oftentimes, not always, having a lot of conversation. And so that can be a cathartic experience in and of itself that we kind of related to the therapeutic process of being in therapy and the validation of getting to tell your story. Do you want to add anything to that, Simone?
No. Sounds good.
Great.
Could you say more about the process of how people go about designing their own tattoos?
Oh. Well, we were looking at the process of designing your own tattoos, either from what the tattoo artist said, what the individual said, or what the therapist said. And I think it all depends who is the person talking. So most people who are doing it with working through making a tattoo with a therapist spend more time on really deliberating what to make and making some sketches and so forth. Tattoo artists often would like their clients to have more of an idea rather than just coming in and saying, looking at a book and picking something. And people who design their own tattoos usually spend quite a bit of time thinking about their tattoo, where it would be placed, and how big it would be. Sarah, do you want to add something about that?
Sure. I'll just add that one of the individuals that I interviewed recently had made a coil pot in ceramics, and she chose to get a tattoo of the coil pot that she had physically made. So I thought that was a really cool way of designing her tattoo, that it was actually from a three-dimensional piece of art that she had created and then turned into a design for a tattoo. Okay, so we have another question here, Simone. I am among the elder generation who does not like tattoos. How should we respond to someone who shows us their over-the-top work that we find very distasteful in a way that does not disrespect that person?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think that you would, the same way that you would react to a person who was wearing some clothing or maybe a mask nowadays that you find repulsive. I think that you should accept everybody for what they're bringing to the table, and yeah, probably not tell them how you feel about that.
Yeah, I'm also wondering like why it's found distasteful. If it's, there are people that choose to get offensive tattoos. So I'm wondering if it's distasteful because we just don't like tattoos, or if it's distasteful because it's offensive. So I feel like those are kind of two slightly different things. Yeah, it's a good question. If someone had a hateful tattoo, I think that's a lot of us would probably find that pretty distasteful. But if we just don't like tattoos, then I think, yeah, I don't always like the shirt someone's wearing, but I just probably wouldn't say anything about it. If someone asks you specifically, I think it's okay to say like tattoos aren't for me, but I can see that, you really enjoy them. Yeah, so the next question kind of relates to that, asking about, have you seen any tattoos like a swastika? Yes, I have, both in my personal life and online. I have seen tattoos of swastikas and other kind of like hateful symbology. I've never spoken to anyone about their choice to get a tattoo like that. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting issue. I don't know if you want to add anything, Simone.
Once you start telling people you're investigating tattoos, people send you all sorts of tattoos, some very disturbing ones on people's faces or whatever, ones from Russian prisons that are just amazing and repulsive, gang members. So I personally have never talked to an individual who had those kind of tattoos. And I'd be wondering really what it's saying about how they want the world to stay away from them. I'm not quite sure why somebody would want to be wearing something like that on their body. So I haven't personally. I don't know if anybody in the audience has, but
yeah, it would be interesting to talk to some tattoo artists that may or may not have had that come up. I know in watching videos online, I've seen a lot of tattoo artists talk about how they will refuse tattoos that are, hateful, homophobic, sexist, racist, etc.
yes, that's true. In the tattoo artists that we've interviewed, they all said that they would not allow the person to get a tattoo that was hateful or towards another group, or even towards the group that they're a member of. And tattoo artists have ethics that they share with each other. I don't think it says documented as therapists, but they do have ethical guidelines.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I'd like to ask if you see many tattoos in the United States that are expressive of any certain religious traditions.
Oh. Well, yes, quite a few people have tattoos representing Christianity. There's many people with crosses on their arms. I think that's the most prominent. There are some other religious or spiritual groups that may have tattoos on themselves. It also depends on whether how would I say it, observant the person is, because certain groups such as Judaism, when I put out on Facebook that I was giving this talk, somebody wrote to me, "Don't you know that this is prohibited in the Torah and how you shouldn't be giving a talk about this?" So, different people might have different opinions about that. Same thing about people who might be Muslim or even Catholics, or yes. So some groups do not feel it is written in the holy books, or yeah, that they cannot have a tattoo. Sarah and I have come up with some prompts to help you, because it is an artist festival and an authors festival, to help you continue thinking about some of the issues we brought up. And so we're gonna show you that. So we call it a prompt, but it's just like an idea, really. So maybe sometime today or in the next couple of weeks, you might create a tattoo or image that empowers you, especially an image that empowers you during this very time of uncertainty, fear of illness, and so you can create an image that empowers you. You might want to think about, is there a symbol that you can make to represent your experience of uncertainty? Or an image that memorializes something to you or someone, or losing something. Many people not only lost a person in their lives, but they lost income, or they lost an ideal. We also suggest that there are some beautiful quotes and poems by different authors, as this is a writers' festival. And one author that we took a quote with for today is the poet, Irish poet, John O'Donohue. And I have to move this away so I could see. And John O'Donohue, one of the things that he said, which we thought was apropos for this time, is let there be an opening into the quiet that lies beneath the chaos, where you will find the peace you do not think is possible and see what shimmers within the storm. So since it is storming outside my window today, I will leave you with that thought. Of course, we're open if there's any more questions or comments. The thought of let there be an opening within the storm to see what is possible. Thank you very much for coming to our presentation today.
Thank you so much for being here.